Hello, this is Terry from Fabric Junction, and today I'm going to show you how to create a quilt using hexagons. And we call it a kaleidoscope hexie using panels. The one on my right is a pheasant, and I took 6 pheasant panels and cut them up to create all my hexagons. On my left, I did the same thing with a purple field of flowers. Again, 6 panels. The 7th panel goes in the center, and then I cut the rest up, creating an additional field and beautiful sky. So now let me show you what I did. To start with, like I said, I layered 6 panels. They're all layered exactly the same way. I had trimmed off the selvages so that I could get them to layer. I pinned in several places to hold it together. Once I had that done, I cut a 3.5-inch strip. Now you can cut your strips the short way or the long way. That's your choice. I like to cut them this way because I have a ruler that extends that whole length, and I mark my 3.5 so that I don't forget. Anyway, cut your strip. You can cut multiples. A lot of times when I'm doing these, I'll cut 3 or 4 or 5 strips, then I'll put those hexies together, then I'll come and cut some more. But we have our strip cut. So now we're going to cut the shape for our hexagon, and I'm using a 60-degree ruler. The one that I like to use is actually from Creative Grid. Turn it so you can see it. It's Creative Grid, and it has the little point cut off. I like that, and I'll tell you in a minute why. But let's cut a couple hexies. I line it up on the 3.5 because that's what my strip is. There's a nice line here. Line it up on my 3.5, and the first cut goes one way. The next cut is kind of backwards. If you want to walk around your table to get to that side, you sure can. It's the side that sticks a little, where I don't get through all 6 layers. There we go. Got through the 6. If I don't have them pinned already, this one's got a pin in it. I put a pin in. Then I take my triangle, line it up, line up my line straight across, double check, press down a little because I am cutting 6 layers, and I do another one. Once I have that cut, I slip a pin in it to make sure that I have all the layers together. Because the key to this is to make sure that your 6 pieces stay together. So another cut. Okay, cut the whole thing, throw those away. If there's something else you can do with them, go for it. But let's sew together. This is the reason I like the tip cut off. Normally when you're going to do a hexagon, we would put it together and we'd say, oh, do you like it that way, or do you like it, let's see if I can find a different angle. Let's see, this one, I think it's this one. I'm coming back to this one, somewhere I missed one, but whatever. You could arrange it umpteen different ways. There, you know, you've got 3 different choices there. By having this already cut off, I know what's my center. I like every option it gives me. I mean, once I cut them, I don't need to sit here and go, oh no, I want it this way, I want it this way. Because I'm going to do approximately 100 of these. So I like every option that's out there. This way, I know where my center is. I won't make a mistake, or I try not to, make a mistake and match it up like this and go, oh no, I got to tear it apart. So let's proceed. with putting our hexie together. And the key to this is you actually only make half. So we will quickly here. So 2 sections of it together, and I sew from where the tip is cut off. And I normally would have a whole stack of them right here, and I do just like this. I grab one set. Now normally I'd run and press that, but because I don't want to get up 112,000 times to take care of these, I just do a little finger press right on that and line it up. The other nice thing on this lineup, you can see, here's where this one's cut off. When you open it up and line it up, here's your seam allowance, your corner, it lines up beautifully. So let's get that one lined up. Line up the rest of it. Cut the other one. I'm going to do the same thing to this one. And I keep my seam on the top. Most of the time when I sew that would be on the bottom, but in this case I want it on the top so I can make sure it stays open. And when I finish that one, I would grab my next stack, bring it over, and I would repeat that. Once this comes far enough off the machine, I separate it and I just throw it in a pile. I leave these 2 hooked together and then they go in a nice big pile. Okay, now I'm ready to press. I'm tired of sewing for a while, so now I'm going to press. When I get over to my iron, I use my cutter to separate them and I press the seams open. Not too many projects do I press the seams open, but this is one. Because I like the way the hexies lay when the seam is open. And even though there's going to be quite a bit of bulk in that center, at least it's spread out. That's kind of my feeling about it, that it just kind of... So then we get it pressed. We want to keep them together yet, so I press them in their little sets of 2s. Then when I have them, I put them together and I slip a pin to the side. Okay, now we'll move on. I have a pin in the side. I have a stack of them. I've made a few extra ones here. So now I have a big stack. The next step is to get your panel, that 7th panel, and you're going to trim it to 24.5 by 39.5. So there is my floral panel. Get a few things out of the way here that I'm going to add my hexies to. Once I have all my hexies made, I actually lay this out. Most of the time it's on my bed, sometimes the floor. I lay it out and I lay all the hexies with it. So I go through, and as you can see on this one here, I saved all the sky for the top and all the florals for the bottom. This one, since the whole thing is floral, I can lay, in my mind, all over the place. The reason the pin is on the side is so I can open it up to lay it out. The side ones will lay out in rows, and you want that seam to run parallel with your panel. And as I'm laying them out. If there's one I feel like it needs to move, I move it. I gotta spread those out a little bit because we need a half one to go right here. Now the other half, a lot of times I save it and put it towards the top so that they're spread out. But for this, I'm just gonna move it right there. So you get the idea, okay? The top is just a smidgen different. The top also laid out in rows like that, but you will have extra that will kind of jet out a little bit. And let me show you what I mean. I have put the top together, and here it is. This is what I have picked to go across the top here. It takes 4 sets of these across the top. And these were all laid out in rows, and then I sewed the rows together, pressed everything open. As you can see, everything's pressed open. And the reason these are dangling is they actually go, if you can picture it, they go in this row. But I don't want to lose their position, the ones that they match up with. Once I have this sewn, I will sew my end sections first. The short side, the 24-inch side of my panel first. And then I will come back, once it's put together, I will trim these off so I have a straight line. And I trim it, but I make sure I leave my seam allowance because I don't want to trim clear down on these intersections. Otherwise the seam's going to come down here and I lose my seam allowance. So make sure you keep your seam allowance. The one on the end is going to look a little bit odd, but line it up, keep your seam allowance there, and then just cut off these little sections. And I do them kind of one at a time as I line them up. We'll get them lined up across here. And one more. There. Now this section is ready to sew onto my panel. So I would sew that together. Now you'll see the other side is sticking out too. I leave those there until after I have it quilted. Once it's quilted, I'll trim. The longer side of your panel, you won't have that because as you lay it out, as we were laying out here, as you keep laying that out, you'll have a straight edge because you're creating a straight edge on this side. See, because this one here could go up here. Hopefully that makes sense to you. Get it laid out there. You know, and as you're building, you will end up, like I said, that could go there. Open another one. That could go there. And that is your layout. Now remember, the key is to sew it in rows. Keep track of your hexagon, sew it in rows. So if I was getting ready to sew this row, I would unpin it from here, because I know this is where this one goes, but I would pin it to this one. I would grab a pin, because he's going to go up there, and I don't want to lose him. I'll pin him to that one. So you need a lot of pins. I'd pin this one to this one, and I would get this whole row pinned. I would go to my sewing machine, so we'll pretend I'm going over to the sewing machine. And here's one other thing. A lot of times we cut off our dog ears, but in this case, I want them to stay there. See, I've got my dog ears right there, but that's where I line up that point. And I line up the other point on this end. Okay, I stitch and I keep doing that till the whole row is done. When the row is put together, I go back, I lay it down, and then I tend to stitch 2 sections together, 2 sections, and then those 2. I do it in combinations. You sew it in the way that's most comfortable for you. But let's take one more look at the ones that are hanging, and maybe you can see the detail. This is the long side. Here's a hexagon here. Here's a half one. Here's another full one. Here's a half one. And the number across, I know I counted them once. 1, 2, 3, 4. If I can, because I lose them. 5, 6, 7. That's what I thought I remembered. So I have 7 across the long way, and I have 4 on the short side. And then you can build it up and down or out, whatever you want. If you look close at these, my panels are not at the same height in either of these. The top of this panel is right here. Let me get to this side. The top of this panel is down here. And that's only because I put 1 extra row up here versus the bottom, because that's the way I wanted to balance it. You have the option to be creative within your own quilt. The key is find 7 panels that you love. Cut the 6 up. Don't be afraid. Go ahead. Cut the 6 up. Lay them out in rows and put them together and create your own gorgeous quilts, whether you're using wildlife, nature, or just a beautiful bouquet of flowers. Well, I hope you like this video. Do check us out at our website, junctionfabric.com, and have a great day and find that beautiful panel that you want to work with. Thank you again for watching.